Good evening, everyone. This is your weather report. Meteorologist Ted Keller. Of course, we have an impending winter storm tonight with all kinds of precipitation types distributed across all of southwest Missouri and northwest Arkansas. And the thing I want to emphasize tonight is that there is a progression to this type of precipitation, and I'll explain that in a minute. There is ice in the forecast, but ice means different things to different people. If we see an accumulation of sleet on the ground, that's not the same as ice, even though it is technically frozen. Ice is reserved for an ice storm. And I honestly don't see that materializing in Springfield. Now, in parts of the Ozarks, there may be a significant enough ice accumulation to cause some problems. And I'll outline those areas in a minute. But it's awfully difficult in this situation when you have all kinds of sources of information coming from different directions to try to sort through all of this. So we'll do the best we can here to try to figure that out. First of all, the winter storm warning is in effect for basically everybody here that wants to watch this. An ice storm warning is in effect for areas from, let's say, Harrison, basically eastward. Mountain Homes in this, north central, northeastern Arkansas under an ice storm warning. The winter storm warning for the rest of the area implies a mix of precipitation. There's uncertainty involved with this. There are travel concerns. There's ice involved. That's why there's a winter storm warning in effect. I did have a question on Twitter earlier as to why a winter storm warning would go in if the actual totals on the ground are not going to exceed 4 inches. Well, there are exceptions to this, and if it's mixed precipitation, the Weather Service will do what they need to do to get the point across, and it's a very good point, because this is a storm to be dealt with, definitely. Well, here's the current radar. Let me put that into motion for you. First of all, before I do that, let me point out that that's freezing rain. When you see the little dot there in red, lighter here, heavier here, so that you can get an idea what that is. Light freezing rain, rain, so you can see that. Let me put this into motion for you. Now, this is the main band of precipitation as it's developing across the area. Now, the computer will attempt to paint in precipitation type. It's not entirely successful a lot of times. It keys in a lot on surface observations and temperatures. So the fact that we're getting a lot of freezing rain there around Fort Smith, who, by the way, they got about 4 inches of snow earlier from that band. It's now converted to freezing rain. Something similar to that might happen in Springfield, although I don't think the totals will be as much. Now, one point I need to make. Let me stop the loop. Just because this is freezing rain here doesn't mean it will stay that way as that advances towards southern Missouri later on tonight. As a matter of fact, I think it will transition to snow. The layer effect or the banding effect typically in a storm like this goes from snow toward the colder air to sleet, okay, oops, forgot the L, and then to freezing rain, and then to rain. So it just occurs in bands like that. And there are exceptions to that: terrain, valley areas, cooling within the core of heavier rain bands or thunderstorms. Okay, so all that needs to be taken into consideration as well. One thing I do want to point out, you see the speckled appearance to the radar here in Oklahoma? I've seen that time and time again. That speckled appearance means there is rapid rising air over a broad area of Oklahoma. That means this rain and precipitation area will definitely fill in over the next couple of hours. So basically this entire thing here will move northward, with the leading edge of it changing to snow. Where it's freezing rain now will become more of a sleet as it moves north. Then you'll get a layer of freezing rain, then rain. All that advancing toward the area. So what will happen then here in Springfield, just to take an example, is at first we'll get snow, then it'll be followed by sleet, then it'll be followed by freezing rain toward morning, in that progression. Now, I don't know the exact timing of all that, when it will change over. I don't think anybody does. But so when you wake up in Springfield, you'll see an inch or two or more in some areas of sleet and snow mixed, with the snow starting first. Then ice will occur. That means freezing rain. It'll form kind of a crust on top of the precipitation that's already on the ground, and may freeze slightly on wires and trees in Springfield. Again, let me emphasize that I think that the number of hours of freezing rain will be greatest in these areas out here, especially northern Arkansas, where they'll get more hours of just pure freezing rain, where it could accumulate up to 4/10 of an inch in some areas. Some forecasters going a little higher than that. That's my evening update. I'll have another one if necessary later on tonight, and other blog reports, certainly all kinds of reports on Facebook and Twitter throughout the nighttime hours and into the morning tomorrow, and during the day probably as well.